A city councilman endorses Sheila Dixon for mayor.
We need a mayor who will unite us,
while also taking aim at current mayor Brandon Scott.
His lack of leadership is failing all of us.
Why he's confident she can lead Baltimore into the future. Juvenile services under fire from city leaders, the commitment they say the department did not fulfill. Calls for a high-ranking doctor at Johns Hopkins Hospital to be fired immediately. His comments about the war in Israel sparking outrage.
The damage that's been done is irreparable.
City police calling for helicopter support only to hear this response.
Fox is down.
A look at how staffing shortages could be impacting this crucial crime-fighting tool.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
City Hall has reached a level of dysfunction that I never thought was possible, and our residents and our small businesses deserve better.
A strong message from City Councilman Eric Costello saying he no longer trusts Mayor Brandon Scott to lead Baltimore forward. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Costello says it is time for a change, and he believes Sheila Dixon is the best mayoral candidate for Baltimore's future.
We need proven leadership that can restore faith in our local government while creating a culture of accountability that will right this ship. And I believe that former Mayor Sheila Dixon is that leader.
Dixon picks up her first endorsement from an elected official in Baltimore City less than 48 hours before Mayor Scott will kick off his own re-election campaign. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has the fallout from Costello's remarks and how the mayor is responding.
The councilman's endorsement today was accompanied by some stinging words that fell right in the lap of the mayor.
We stand here in Mount Vernon.
In one of Baltimore's most historic districts,
Thank you.
City Councilman Eric Costello made political history of his own.
This is not a decision that I came to overnight.
He came here to announce his mayoral support for former Mayor Sheila Dixon, but it was his comments about the current administration that cut right to the core.
City Hall has reached a level of dysfunction that I never thought was possible, and our residents and our small businesses deserve better.
4 years ago, Costello endorsed Mayor Brandon Scott's campaign, but as car thefts soar and city services suffer, Costello says he can no longer support Brandon Scott.
Make no mistake about it, I love Brandon Scott as a person. I do. And it pains me to say that his lack of leadership is failing all of us. We are at an inflection point, and continuing on this trajectory is simply not an option.
It takes a lot to step out against an administration that you work with.
Costello is the first city council member to make a public endorsement, and experts predict it'll carry a lot of weight.
This endorsement, along with Sandy Rosenberg's endorsement, in many ways may lead people in Canton and Roland Park and other areas to say, if these prominent leaders crossed her, I guess I can cross this bridge and vote for Sheila Dixon.
That's the kind of thing.
Late today, a spokesman with the mayor's campaign questioned the fallout, asking, do we want to keep building Baltimore's future or return to the failed leadership and policies of the past? Mayor Scott represents a brighter future, not a move backwards.
Today, more than ever.
But Costello isn't convinced and predicts Dixon will earn the support of other council members too.
And despite a very public fall from grace, she has never once stopped working for or caring for the people of the city of Baltimore.
Despite his tough talk, the councilman says he still can work with the mayor without incident. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, Baltimore residents telling Fox 45 News they have steadily grown more frustrated with city leadership over the past few months. While shootings and homicides are down, the city has seen car thefts more than triple over the first 10 months of the year. Mayor Scott says it's a nationwide problem and doubled down on a lawsuit against Hyundai and Kia, while residents have said they want him to focus on catching the criminals.
The city of Baltimore should be responsible as well for the amount of theft.
They're catering to the children. Yeah. They're catering to the lawbreakers. There's enough of this going on that the families, the community, the laws, the mayor need to do something.
Baltimore police are still down more than 500 officers and admitted a staffing shortage may have hindered their response to July's Brooklyn Day mass shooting. There are also new concerns about BPD's Foxtrot helicopter. Keith Daniels has more on that story at 10:30. Now, Mayor Scott promised to return to weekly recycling pickup by February of next year, but DPW now says the city will miss that deadline due to staffing shortages and a lack of working trash trucks.
They've been in violation of the law for the past 2 years, and no other jurisdiction has had this kind of impact and had this stuff go off the line the way Baltimore City has.
I had to build a fence to contain it all, to hold it for that long and, not create a bunch of litter around the neighborhood.
Mayor Scott has seen a few controversies in the last year. In September of 2022, the mayor announced a major shift in oversight and management for safe streets. That left city council members outraged, saying the Scott administration didn't tell them about the change. They found out through the media. Last December, Scott raised eyebrows when he accepted a $5,000 campaign donation from longtime city contractor J.P. Grant. Days later, reports showed a company, Grant Finances, was awarded $12 million in city contracts. In February, the mayor approved a deal with BGE to give the company broad control of the city's underground conduit system. Many criticized that deal. City Council President and City Comptroller sat out of a Board of Estimates meeting to try to stop a vote on it, but the mayor pushed it through anyway. At the time, critics called it rushed and an abuse of power. And just this month, Scott vetoed the City Council's plan for drawing new councilmanic districts, forcing the city to adopt his version of the new map. The veto sparked outrage from City Council President Nick Mosby, saying it's not the way government should operate. This brings us to our question of the day. If the election was held today, who would you vote for, Mayor Scott or Sheila Dixon? So far, 97% of people who voted say Sheila Dixon. You can weigh in right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote. Again, during his endorsement of Sheila Dixon today, Councilman Costello called out dysfunction at City Hall under the Scott administration. He says the situation is worse than he thought possible.
City Hall has reached a level of dysfunction that I never thought was possible, and our residents and our small businesses deserve better.
Scan the QR code right there on your screen to tell us about the city dysfunction that you've experienced, whether it's broken water pipes or sky-high water bills, robberies, or trash piling up in your neighborhood. We want to hear about it. The QR code will bring you to a form you can fill out with details on what happened. You can also find it within Jeff's story on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Councilman Costello has also been vocal about holding young offenders accountable. During a recent hearing on car thefts, he questioned the Department of Juvenile Services about their intake process. But his deadline for an answer has come and gone. Fox 45's Vincent Hill continues our coverage of juvenile crime.
Yeah, Mary, according to Councilman Costello, intake officers here at DJS have been hands-off when it comes to taking in juveniles.
Last week at City Hall, questions about DJS's intake process by Councilman Eric Costello.
This informal process with DJS, intake officers not being on site at the Juvenile Justice Center, is creating greater harm in the city.
Intake officers working remotely, forcing Baltimore police to make a phone call on whether or not to bring a juvenile in.
There's no opportunity to appeal an intake officer's decision not to detain a juvenile who has committed a very serious or violent offense.
Deputy Secretary Lisa Gary.
And that is something that will be changing.
Promising change and a memo confirming that change to the City Council.
That is effective November the 15th.
A day later.
It's always disappointing when someone doesn't follow up.
No memo and more disappointment in DJS.
Because at the end of the day, if people don't feel safe in the communities they live, work, and play, that's the most important thing.
Meanwhile, questions about how long city residents can wait for change.
4 number 1 male juveniles between 13 and 16.
After a rash of robberies in Federal Hill.
It's groups of kids, they come up in a car and there's 4 or 5 of them jump out, and your neighbors can't really help.
This woman's neighbor robbed Tuesday night. About a mile away shortly after midnight.
And 36, we got 2 victims at this location here. 2 separate robberies.
The cars pulled up. There was a gun.
2 of this resident's neighbors robbed by masked suspects, leaving him with the word we've heard time and time again.
without any accountability, how do you shape it? How do you stop it?
For Councilman Costello,
Just hopeful that they're going to follow through on the commitment they made.
that accountability starts with DJS keeping their word on changing their intake process.
And we did reach out to Deputy Secretary Lisa Gary to see if those changes have been made. We have not yet heard back. At DGS in Baltimore, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. Well, this week, state Republicans released a proposal to address youth violence and overall crime during the next legislative session. But the plan doesn't address existing problems we've seen with home monitoring once a child leaves DJS custody.
So just so I'm clear, you're referring more children to DJS, but not providing funding or programming to help DJS supervise them?
Those kids need more than what the child in need of assistance or child in need of supervision system can provide them. And so I think resources have been cut. That's a budgetary issue. As you know, we'll see what Governor Moore's budget says.
Those proposals will be on the table in January, but police and prosecutors tell Fox 45 News lawmakers can't wait that long to take action.
If you don't work on this immediately and you say we're going to look at it in January and we're going to ask the governor to sign it in April, May, or June, and it's effective in July or maybe October, the wake of victims is going to be tremendous.
They come in, we can't detain them. They're back in the community the next day. They get picked up for the second one. Can't detain them. They're back in the community again the next day.
Lawmakers will hold a third juvenile crime hearing next month, but they won't be able to pass any new laws or change existing ones until the session begins. Fox 45 News is continuing to demand transparency from Mayor Scott about the Safe Streets program. One day after the mayor cut our questions short, Mackenzie Frost pressed him again about the program's gang ties and whether he supports a full forensic audit.
We caught up with the mayor at various events throughout the day just to question him about what he knows as to what's going on inside the gun violence prevention program.
Good morning, everyone.
After Mayor Scott's media availability Wednesday ended before we had a chance to ask another question.
I have one more question. Brian, everyone got a second round.
We followed up with his office later that day, sending more questions, but no response.
I want to express my thanks and gratitude.
So we caught up with Mayor Scott at an event Thursday to ask those questions about Safe Streets and the history of Black Guerrilla Family, or BGF, gang affiliation with some members from the Violence Interruption Group.
We didn't cut the news conference short. No one else had that complaint but you, so let's be truthful when we're asking questions.
I had other questions, and I sent them to your office, didn't answer, so I wanted to ask you here, how long have you known about the possible links between BGF and Safe Streets?
So we're going to go through this again, Mackenzie. I think that we appreciate your reporting, and we appreciate the fact that you guys can go and look up public documents in court and know that one individual way back in 2010 had been involved in BGF and was in Safe Streets. But we know that that does not mean that everyone that's in Safe Streets is in BGF.
The mayor echoing a sentiment he said before, committing to accountability for any wrongdoing.
Anybody, I don't care if it's Mackenzie Frost, whoever it is, if they're in the streets of Baltimore and they're doing things with BGF or any other organized person, if we find out, we will do what we do all the time. If you're involved in illegal activity, it can be my mother. She'll be treated the same way.
And since funding for the Safe Streets program comes from the state coffers,
would you support the state forensic auditors taking a look at how the money is being spent for the Safe Streets program?
Well, I think that we have a fabulous comptroller in the city of Baltimore who is quite capable of doing that, and we know that when you receive state grants for things, that the state does that on their own.
So if the state auditors were to say they wanted to do it, would you support that?
I just answered that question. City first, and then if the state wants to step in and do that, they can have at it. We're not hiding anything.
The audit commission made up of these 7 members could call for a single audit of Monzi, but so far, that has yet to happen.
As for a state-level audit, we're reaching out to lawmakers in Annapolis to see where they stand on the possibility of that happening. We'll let you know when we learn more. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News has been pushing for transparency from Safe Streets for years. You can find all of our previous reporting and follow our investigation on foxbaltimore.com.
Clear skies and a little bit of chill setting up as we're
Working our way through the Ravens game in the background at M&T Bank Stadium. Clear skies down 46 at BWI. Aberdeen, you're in the 40s too. 52 at Annapolis, Easton at 51, and Westminster a little bit milder at 54. Overnight, a couple of clouds here and there, but mostly clear, I'd say. There could be some patchy fog toward morning, and we'll check that out on the future scan computer model in a couple of minutes. But temperatures in the 40s to around 50 likely by morning, so it's not as cool as you woke up to this morning with a lot of 40s, almost area wide. I'm going to let you know how warm it gets tomorrow before any showers could move in. We're timing those out too in my Weather Authority forecast.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, new details on a 25-year-old case. What you need to know about a former cop accused in a sexual assault case who vanished a quarter century ago. Fear and frustration in southern Maryland after police say teenagers went on 2 major armed carjacking sprees. We hear from one of the victims who says he was afraid for his life. A Johns Hopkins doctor is on leave because of comments he made on the war in Israel. A look at the social media post some described as disturbing and dangerous. Israeli forces are ramping up their raid of a Palestinian hospital, saying they found a tunnel leading to a Hamas facility underneath. But the IDF is yet to show evidence of the command center. Israel is dropping leaflets in Gaza, telling people to evacuate south to Egypt. But many Gazans say they can't legally go to Egypt, are trapped in the current situation. Now, here at home, a Johns Hopkins doctor is on leave for comments he made about the ongoing war. Fox 45's Amy Simpson shares what he said and the backlash.
Maryland's Council on American Islamic Relations raising the red flag about these posts by Dr. Darren Klugman. And today, Johns Hopkins telling me the person responsible for these posts is on leave and will have no interaction with patients or students as it investigates. As the Israel-Hamas war continues in the Middle East, back here in Baltimore, a Hopkins doctor is in the hot seat after violence-infused and hate-filled social media posts surfaced from the first days of the conflict.
We were asked by staff, employees at the hospital, physicians who work there, to take action.
Of Care, the Council on American Islamic Relations, sharing screenshots of a series of online posts from early October, shared by the account at Dr. Klugs. One post described Palestinians as, quote, bloodthirsty, morally depraved animals. Another referred to Palestinians as, quote, people that rape and murder civilians.
We've been listening to reaction from staff at the hospital and physicians who have reached out to us, and also to the families who have pulled their children from the hospital and now have taken their children to other hospitals.
CARE said it learned of the posts Monday night, quickly filing a complaint with Maryland's Board of Physicians to investigate Dr. Darren Klugman. The physician, according to his profile on Johns Hopkins website, director of pediatric cardiac critical care and an associate professor of anesthesiology and critical care medicine.
Healthcare providers, physicians have a responsibility to demonstrate that they can care for these children regardless of their own political views, regardless of which side of the divide they are on, how they perceive the events unfolding overseas.
The hospital also responding this week. We at Hopkins share the concern of many about the deeply disturbing social media posts made by a faculty member in the School of Medicine regarding the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. A spokesperson said in part, also saying the hospital and university are committed to a safe and inclusive environment for all. Statements that explicitly threaten or extol violence against groups or individuals on the basis of national origin, race, or religion violate our policies and do not represent our values. While this doctor is on leave, as Johns Hopkins says it's investigating, this civil rights advocacy group not satisfied and calling for further action.
You know, at this point, it's too little too late. A leave is not enough. We are calling for him to be terminated. We are calling for his medical license to be revoked.
The social media account that made these posts in early October has since been deleted. And this afternoon, citing state confidentiality laws, Maryland's Department of Health said the Board of Physicians cannot disclose whether or not it's investigating this physician, but did say any possible disciplinary action will be posted on the board's website. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Now, this comes as a Montgomery County teacher is under investigation for pushing conspiracy theories about the war. Her post claiming Israelis are killing Palestinians to sell their organs. According to the Daily Wire, Montgomery County Schools is investigating. The words Holocaust 2.0 were written in chalk during a rally at the University of Maryland. The group organizing the rally says none of the members wrote the message and they quickly washed it off. Nonprofit CASA of Maryland is facing backlash over its executive director's comments on the war, expressing his steadfast support for Palestine's relentless fight for freedom. Some lawmakers not satisfied with the apology after CASA deleted the posts.
I wouldn't really call it a full apology, but then it says that they're going to put out an updated statement. Yet it's been over a week and they haven't done so. And so clearly they're not really sorry about this statement that they put out.
Today, CASA took to Twitter and did release a new statement saying, in part, quote, "We wanted to shine a spotlight directly on the innocent Israeli and Palestinian children and families caught in the midst of this horrendous conflict. Instead, we caused dear friends pain and confusion." Some TikTok users are standing by Hamas, posting a letter written by terrorist leader Osama bin Laden. In Letter to America, written in 2002, bin Laden justified the 9/11 attacks through various anti-Israel statements. Now the hashtag Letter to America has been trending on the video sharing app, with users encouraging others to read the letter and apply it to the Israel-Hamas war. Lawmakers have called to ban TikTok amid fears of pro-Hamas content spreading on the app. In a statement, TikTok says it's removing this content and investigating how it got onto the platform. It claims the number of those videos on TikTok is small and reports of it trending are inaccurate.
A Thanksgiving celebration turns into a nearly 25-year cold case. I'm Alexa Ashwell. On Maryland's Most Wanted, the search for an ex-cop turned predator and how authorities believe he's been able to elude law enforcement for this long.
And patch or two of fog possible tonight. Here's what our computer models are putting out hour by hour. Overnight after midnight, especially as we head towards, say, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, right near the bay especially. That's where you could have some of that densest fog. Look at Elkton. By 7:45 a.m., you drop to 0 visibility, but by about 9 o'clock, it's gone, and we're back to sunshine and warm temperatures tomorrow afternoon. I'll let you know, when our weekend could include a chance of rain. My Weather Authority forecast.
And let's take a live look at M&T Bank Stadium. Right now, the Ravens lead the Bengals 21-13 in the third quarter. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Carroll County firefighters battled a heavy fire at a home in Finksburg Wednesday afternoon. Officials say the fire started in the front of the home, although it's unclear what caused it. No one was hurt, but the home suffered about $250,000 in damages. Baltimore City fire officials are educating people on the importance of regular smoke detector checks. Fire Chief James Wallace says alarm batteries need to be changed at least every 10 years, and annual inspections are important. The fire department's also offering free smoke detector installations to anybody who doesn't have an alarm on every floor of their home.
To our residents, please do not hesitate to reach out to your fire department or the American Red Cross to request a smoke alarm installation. Together, we can save lives and make a lasting impact on fire safety in our city.
Wallace says smoke alarms can help reduce the chance of dying in a house fire by 50%. Fire officials also telling families to prepare an evacuation plan in case of a fire. Ahead at 10:30, BPD's helicopter unit under scrutiny why a lack of response to recent crime has a key council member asking questions.
Is momentum growing for more third-party candidates in the race for the White House? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with new poll numbers and what they mean for 2024.
We are following three big stories at 10:30. Frustration with President Biden and his main challenger, Donald Trump. How a third-party presence in the White House is gaining some steam among voters. Teen carjacking sprees across Maryland within the past week. One victim's chilling testimony as he was held at gunpoint on his way home from work. And they're a valuable eye in the sky for Baltimore police. But Foxtrot helicopters may not be up and running when they are needed the most.
We're getting another armed robbery at gunpoint involving a white Honda Elantra. Fox is down.
Tonight, we are pushing for more clarity on why Foxtrot may not be operating at its full capacity. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with his findings. Keith?
Well, Mary, that concern about Foxtrot is coming from within the department, and tonight, looking for answers. In Baltimore, police engaged in their fight against the city's crime crisis. One of BPD's critical crime-fighting tools, the department's aviation unit. Foxtrot.
Foxtrot 1023. Still westbound. He's going to be in the parking lot now. He's back running. Westbound on Riggs. Westbound on Riggs.
The unit highlighted in its recruiting video. Tonight, Foxtrot under scrutiny. Sources with knowledge about the unit's operation telling Fox 45 News the unit has a huge issue with staffing pilots, down to only 3 line pilots. This after recently taking possession of 3 new helicopters. Baltimore City Councilman Mark Conway
I think it's really important that we figure out what's going on there.
is chair of the council's Public Safety Committee, being made aware now about the possibility of concern inside Foxtrot.
We need all the resources that we can to support our officers and the work that they do. We don't want to be in instances where we need Foxtrot and we don't have it. That's not acceptable.
But it happened just after 9 o'clock Wednesday night. After 2 armed robberies, officers called for Foxtrot but didn't get it. The exchange between officers and dispatch heard over the radio.
And we just had 2 armed robberies happen back to back right here in the 900 block of Ryan and the 700 block of McHenry. We have 3 individuals traveling together, 1 foot, dressed in all black, ski masks.
Officers in patrol cars told to canvass the area. Then the call to Foxtrot.
090 Action Fox. This is 10-7.
10-7, meaning out of service. More instances heard over the radio during a crime spree Saturday night.
If we're getting another armed robbery at gunpoint involving a white Honda Elantra, Fox is down.
Yes, we're on the line with that task force right now. Fox up yet?
Negative. I sent multiple requests, including a request for county air.
Councilman Conway with questions now about why, in those instances, no Foxtrot response.
Is it a matter of staffing? Is it a matter of maintenance? Is it a matter of something else that we can't speak for at the moment? I want to get to those questions as soon as possible.
Fox 45 News reached out to BPD with questions, including, what is the staffing situation at Foxtrot? Are more pilots needed? A spokesperson responded saying Foxtrot has set hours of operations, and those hours fluctuate during high crime times, referring to the Saturday incident, saying Foxtrot had not started their shift yet. This was not due to staffing, funding, or mechanical issues. Well, Lindsay Eldridge, the chief spokesperson for BPD, is calling those concerns over Foxtrot, quote, inaccurate. Still, Councilman Conway says he'll be reaching out to BPD to check and look into it himself. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, Baltimore's police union highlighting some staffing shortages in the Southern District this past weekend. Only 4 scheduled officers were on patrol Saturday and Sunday mornings. Commanders were forced to recruit 12 other officers to work overtime in order to fill vacancies. While a police spokeswoman insists the shifts were fully staffed, union leaders say it's dangerous to rely on officers working overtime. Baltimore City is approaching 10,000 car thefts this year, more than triple the level we saw this time last year. Police say juveniles are responsible for 38% of those thefts and several recent carjackings across the city. Those concerns extending across our region as police say teens are responsible for 2 major carjacking sprees in Washington, D.C. and Montgomery County this week. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station spoke to one of the victims.
He's 20 years old. He works 10 hours a day and then goes to school in the evenings to become a fully licensed electrician. He had just gotten home last night when it happened. Kids sticking a gun in his face.
I just turn around, I just see him coming at me with the gun pointed at me, talking about, give me your keys, give me your keys.
And just like that, his car, his Infiniti, is gone. The carjacker is firing warning shots in the air as they speed away. How important is that car to you?
I mean, that's my daily, every day, you know, gets me to work, school.
And this is his car a short time later, in flames, in the district, a police pursuit ending in a crash and the arrest of 2 young suspects, 15 and 16-year-old boys. Police say the older kid had a gun which he'd used in 5 carjackings yesterday. Prince George's police say the pair of teens started their spree at about 3:30 with a failed attempt on 85th Avenue in New Carrollton. Less than an hour later, it's alleged they did a successful armed carjacking on Emerson Street in Hyattsville, then another 4 hours later on Kinsey Terrace in Lanham, then taking the Infinity from Wallace Road in Lanham, then just 10 minutes later, failing on one final carjacking attempt on Ruby Turn in Bowie.
I'm over here, trying to do my best in life, trying to go to work, school, trying, complete my life goal, just for something like that to happen.
According to a source familiar with the 16-year-old alleged carjacker, he's been arrested multiple times this year and yet continues to commit crimes.
I'm really sounding an alarm of an all-hands-on-deck approach.
That's Montgomery County Police Chief Marcus Jones talking about the failure of the juvenile justice system to hold children who do crimes accountable. His agency revealing the arrests of 13 teens Monday in stolen or carjacked vehicles. His press release concluding with all juvenile suspects were released to their parents.
Arresting 13 young people for carjacked vehicles and stolen cars in one day. That's never I've never known that to happen in Montgomery County.
As for that young victim who saw his car go up in flames, he's lost his car, his electrician's gear, and his laptop, and he couldn't make it to work today. In Lanham, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Teen carjackings in D.C. One of the reasons Mayor Muriel Bowser is declaring a public emergency on juvenile crime, which will allow the city to beef up its youth violence response. Fox 45 News pressed Mayor Brandon Scott and some of his challengers on whether a similar strategy should be implemented in Baltimore.
Let's remember, everybody, that D.C. is a city that's governed differently than ours and any other city in the country. Essentially, D.C. is a city and a state at the same time. They control a whole manner of juvenile systems that we don't, because we have the fabulous state of Maryland, like juvenile service, like social service, like CPS. All of those things are not under the preview of the mayor.
It's gotten out of control, and we've waited so long before we started dealing with this sooner, which we should have when we saw a trend. When we saw 5 cars being stolen or 5 carjacks, we should have gotten on it and figured out what we needed to do to stop it.
This is reaching a point now where people in our city feel unsafe.
Yesterday, we asked you if Baltimore should declare a state of emergency on juvenile crime. 93% of people who voted said yes.
The business of politics has gotten so big because the business model is a Democrat business and a Republican business.
West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin considering becoming an independent, saying both Democrats and Republicans have gone too extreme. As chief political correspondent Scott Thuman explains, plenty of voters seem to agree.
For those assuming 2024 will turn out as this two-man race, an alarming number of Americans are saying not so fast, including West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who's floating the idea of a third-party run, citing concerns about both Donald Trump.
The country would be in a horrible situation challenging our democracy if he got reelected.
And President Biden.
He's not the person we thought that was getting elected, being a centrist and moderate. He's been pushed so far to the left.
He's not alone. A new Quinnipiac poll shows more than 7 in 10 independent voters